What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 12 top 12 defense rankings. Despite there being 4 teams on bye and like one of the top fantasy defenses in the Broncos not playing, this still feels like a really strong week for defenses. So whether you have one already on your roster or you're streaming, I do think you can find a really quality option this week. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe. But let's just dive right into tier one. And I feel like we have to start it off here with the Seahawks. Not only are they the #1 defense in points per game so far this season, but they have the best matchup in the NFL. They're going up against the Titans here. Defenses going up against the Titans are scoring the most fantasy points per game. The Titans, I believe, have like a season low for any team this year in implied points, all the way down at 13.5. I don't think you can make an argument for another defense here to be at #1. So Seahawks going up against the Titans, they are my top dog. Now also in tier one, I have the Ravens going up against the Jets. And when you look at the Ravens like overall defensive point per game number, it's not going to be amazing, but they were really rough to start off the season. They really turned a corner in the last 3 games or so. Last 3 weeks, they have given up 35 total points. They have 4 picks, 3 forced fumbles, 6 quarterbacks. So they're just limiting opposing offenses. They're forcing turnovers. They're applying pressure, getting to the quarterback. And then this is a great matchup here against the Jets. They are turning to Tyrod Taylor. Probably, I guess, a downgrade for the Ravens compared to Justin Fields, but Fields also done a pretty good job of protecting the ball, even if they weren't doing anything offensively. But no matter who's playing quarterback for this team, this is just an awful offense. They have the second lowest implied point total this week. Ravens, absolute smash start. Moving into a pretty large tier two, I'm going to start it off with the Raiders going up against the Browns. And this could come back to bite me because the Raiders have straight up not been a good defense, real life or for fantasy. They're actually bottom 5 in points per game. But this is just a really strong bet against the offense of the Cleveland Browns. Defenses going up against the Browns are scoring the second most fantasy points per game. Vegas has the Browns as the third lowest implied point total team this week, so not getting a ton of respect there. And then I don't even know if I want to touch on the Shedeur Sanders thing because it's just like such a divisive topic. He's such a divisive player. You've got these extreme takes on both sides, but I do think it's relevant for this video. It does look like he's going to be the starter with Dylan Gabriel in concussion protocol. And like I said, there's just like these extreme takes on both sides. Some people are going to completely bury him after one really rough debut. Other people are going to pretend like the Browns are doing everything in their power to harm him and like they're actively rooting for him to fail. You've got the Josina Anderson, I think is her name, those like delusional tweets out there. And for the people claiming that like the Browns are sabotaging him and it's coaching malpractice, he hasn't been getting all these reps with the ones, you can disagree with them deeming Dylan Gabriel to be like the QB2 over Shedeur early in the offseason, right, where you had Flacco as the #1. But like they kind of told us that's how they felt with where they drafted these guys, right? Dylan Gabriel round 3, Shedeur Sanders in round 5. And then during the season, when you have like reps with the ones fairly limited, you're not going to have a heavy split when you have a rookie quarterback. So to me, that's like a real nothing burger in terms of Shedeur not getting a lot of work with the ones. But I do think it's relevant because the fact that he hasn't gotten a lot of reps with the ones and that this offensive environment is just terrible, I have a really tough time seeing him go in here and light it up against the Raiders. I mean, last week, 4 for 16 with an interception. This is an awful offensive line. The weapons are completely terrible. I guess you got like a couple of good tight ends. The wide receiver room is just absolutely heinous. And then in my opinion, like the biggest kind of concern or area of improvement for Shedeur coming into the NFL was his pocket presence, right? He typically would spin into pressure, wouldn't necessarily get rid of the ball super quickly. He would take a lot of sacks. And in this offensive environment, I just feel like that is really magnified. So I don't think Shedeur is going to play super well. It's a pretty brutal situation for him to get dropped into. And even though the Raiders defense hasn't been good, I do think they win out in this matchup against the Browns. Then also in this tier, I've got the Packers going up against the Vikings. JJ McCarthy has been pretty brutal. It's unfortunate because you came into the season thinking he had a really good supporting cast. It still is a very good supporting cast, specifically with the weapons. You've got Kevin O'Connell. The O-line has been a little bit hit or miss. They've had some injury issues, but He is just not playing at a high level. Defenses going up against the Vikings this year are scoring the fourth most points per game. The Packers defense, I think better real life defense than for fantasy so far this season, but the Vikings are also down with the fourth lowest implied point total. So I think the Packers are a really nice play. Then I talked about the Raiders. Now we've got the Browns on the other side of that matchup. Browns defense, very solid, sixth in points per game allowed. What's also crazy is they'd be even better if they had like an even somewhat competent offense on the other side, putting them in better situations, but they're still managing to produce for fantasy. Defenses going up against the Raiders are scoring the third most fantasy points per game, and then the Raiders have a pretty low 20 implied points this week. Then we've got the Saints going up against the Falcons. Saints aren't an amazing defense. They've been like slightly below average in terms of fantasy points per game, but like this Falcons offense is just gutted at this point. Michael Penix done for the year. Drake London would be shocked if he plays this week. You've got Kirk Cousins back there who has a lot of experience, but he's looked like an absolute statue when he's gotten in there, just like zero mobility, sitting back there like a sitting duck. And then if he has to get rid of the ball quickly, there's just not a ton of weapons out there for him to, actually get the ball to. Falcons, fifth lowest implied point total. I think the Saints are fine, and I think this Falcons offense is really going to struggle. And then in that same matchup, the last team in tier 2, it's the Falcons going up against the Saints. Defenses going up against the Saints are top 6 in points per game. Tyler Shuck has been really solid. I'm not, thinking he's some sort of like world beater, future Pro Bowl quarterback, but he's been solid, but it's also not a quarterback that I'm completely, avoiding a matchup for. Falcons defense has been fine, 14th in points per game, but they are second in sacks and forced fumbles. So I do think they are a solid play this week. And then moving into tier 3, started off with the Bills going up against the Texans. You got Davis Mills at quarterback. Not super scared of that. They just had a really rough offensive game against the Titans, only put up 16 points, needed a late field goal to win that one. They are bottom 6 in implied points. Now, the Bills' defense hasn't been great. Specifically, their run defense has just been completely awful. But this Texans run game is also bad. Woody Marks, Nick Chubb have both been super inefficient. This offensive line is terrible. And so I guess it's a battle of just two really rough units. But I still like the Bills here. I think they're a very fine defensive play. Then I've got the Lions going up against the Giants. Looks like Jackson Dart is on track to play this week. Lions 12th in points per game. They're a solid defense. Defense is going up against the Giants, are scoring the 7th most points per game. I do think this offense could be a little bit more limited without Brian Dable kind of running Jackson Dart into the ground. Long term, I think it's great for Dart, great for his long-term health. But in terms of short-term results, which it seemed like Dable was really pushing for, I do think they could take a hit there. Lions are just a defense I trust a decent amount. And then I'm just not super scared of this Giants offense. Then I've got the Patriots going up against the Bengals. Jamar Chase being out in this one, I do think is a huge deal. The Patriots defense are top 10 in points per game. Week 11 for the Bengals was really the first rough game we've seen with Joe Flacco offensively for this team. And I don't know if they're going to have this major bounce back without Jamar Chase in the lineup. And then the final team here in tier 3, not a great matchup, but it's the Rams going up against the Buccaneers. This Rams defense has just been awesome. They are 3rd in points per game. They are top 3 in interceptions, forced fumbles, and fumble recoveries. We'll have to monitor the injuries to Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin. I don't love playing defenses against this Bucs offense. They can go out there, put together big games, but they haven't been, super consistent as of late. I think the Rams are a very fine play. And then the final tier here, it's actually just a one-team tier. I think there could have been a few other defenses that would have been a continuation of this tier. But I've got the 49ers going up against the Panthers. Now, I do not think the 49ers are a good defense. They're actually averaging the 3rd fewest points per game. But it's a good matchup against the Panthers. I know Bryce Young is coming off that monster performance, but this offense has just been really volatile. They are 8th in points per game allowed. They just dropped 30 on Atlanta. Bryce Young threw for 450 yards. But then the week before that, they look awful against the Saints and only score 7 points. So kind of hit or miss. It does feel like this could end up being a really bad play if the Panthers have a boom game. But once we're getting outside of the top 3 tiers, all the options are a little bit sketchy. But that is going to wrap it up for the top 12. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.